Welcome, everyone. This is another episode of Dr. Orman's Lifecast. My name is David Orman, and today is August 26th. Only a couple of more days, and we're into September, and pretty soon fall, which is one of my favorite times of year, if not my favorite time of year. I absolutely love the holidays. I absolutely love in Florida, we have warm weather, but it's not nearly as humid as it is in the summer, and it changes. Some days will be real cool, other days will be warm. So we get variety versus the summer, which is steady, 9,900 degrees. Today's topic is about finding and having a teacher who is willing to be truthful with you. As many of you who know me know, one of my greatest passion is martial arts, and I've been very, very, very fortunate to have some fantastic teachers in my life who not only helped me learn martial arts, but the greatest advantage is what they did is they helped me learn more about life through martial arts. And maybe martial arts isn't your thing. Maybe writing is, or languages, or music. It really doesn't matter what the topic is, other than that you have a passion for it, other than this is what your heart starts to sing and move and gets lively about. The key really is finding a fantastic teacher or somebody who can help mentor you through moments that may be difficult, but there are a lot of people who can do that. The real key is finding a teacher who, through the lessons that they teach you in your given subject, whether it be drums or, in my case, martial arts, they teach you about life. And half the time, you don't even realize you're learning about life. You think you're learning just about martial arts. My I have two teachers who are absolutely fantastic. One of them in particular, his name is Vladimir Vasiliev. He lives in Toronto, Canada, and has been, I don't know how long he's been teaching martial arts. My guess is probably 50 years, maybe even more. When I've spoken with him, when I was a kid, I was doing this. When I was a kid, I was doing that. So I'm sure it's been a lifelong pursuit. And his skill level, as well as his ability to teach, are just off the charts. I can find the perfect words and put them in the perfect order, and it will not even begin to attempt to describe my gratitude and thanks to him for all of the things that he's taught me and for all of the information that he shared. I want to give you an example. Yesterday, we have a monthly Q&A thanks to the Patreon membership. And so it'll be about an hour long, and you have, I don't know, maybe 25 up to maybe 40 people on the line. And they'll either submit questions or spontaneously ask questions about any particular subject. And no matter what the subject is, no matter what the question is, Vladimir always seems to have the answer. Not an answer, but the answer. And it's one that goes on two levels. One answers the question. The deeper meaning behind the words begins to be applicable towards one's life. For example, and I wrote some of the notes, and I wanted to read you this one quote that he said yesterday. There's always the one quote. No matter how many, I've probably taken hundreds of classes with him and a bunch of seminars. And throughout every single time, there's always been at least one quote that just rises above and makes me scratch my head, because we've gone well beyond martial arts and into the world of how to make your life better. And what he said yesterday is, don't work less, but rest more. And he's speaking to the notion that we have, that I've spoken with a couple of times, the idea of balance and the notion of balancing yin and yang, rest and activity. Here in America, but truly I suspect it is in virtually every single country around the world, there is so much accolade and reward given to people who work. Well, I work 50, 60, 70 hours a week, and many of us admire people like that. But it's so out of balance. For most people, that would be really, really out of balance. They're not working because they want to. I'm sure that, there are the Elon Musks of the world that are the exceptions, but most people are putting in inordinate amounts of time because they have to, not because they want to. And that throws one's life out of balance. It has a tendency to burn out the yin. The yin is like the soft, the quiet, the structure of the body. And the yang is the active, the lively. Yang is often the fun stuff. Yin is the stuff we have to work on. And resting is the yin builder. And resting, I mean resting as in recuperating, not avoidance. In other words, I'm bored, I'm going to bed because I'm bored. That's not rest. That is a waste of time. Rest is I really put in a full day. My body is tired. It is time to rejuvenate. That is rest. A lot of people struggle sleeping or struggle with rest, and there are a number of things that can be done with that. When the mind is overactive, there is a substance called white chestnut, which is what's known as a Bach, B-A-C-H, flower remedy. And it basically helps to calm or to quiet the mind. And so if you can somehow, I don't know, put an imaginary microphone in one's head somehow, some way, it would sound like, can you believe it? It's going to be so hot. I have so much to do today. I have to get, you believe the price at public, incessant talking that never, ever stops. And I suspect that if you moved to Tibet in a monastery and shaved your head after 20 years, you might be able to quiet it down 20%, 30%, maybe even 50%. Most of us aren't going to shave our heads and move to Tibet for 20 years. So what can be done? That's where the Bach remedy comes into play. There is also a point on the very, very top of the head. So if you folded your ears forward and you drew a line and it went to the top of the head, it's called DU number 20, do 20. And you can look that up for those who are listening to this podcast, or if you are watching this on YouTube, you can see that particular point literally on top of the head. And if you notice, it has a tendency to be a little bit softer than the rest of the skull. It is also about the size of a quarter. And if you imagine a clock being on top of the head, you'd move in a counterclockwise direction, a counterclockwise direction. Counterclockwise has a tendency to quiet things down, slow things down, whereas moving in a clockwise direction does exactly the opposite. So if a person's real hyper, counterclockwise direction. And if a person is dragging and they're tired, clockwise direction. And that applies to even simple things, like, walking the dog or going for a run around the neighborhood. That direction matters. So those are two simple things that can be done. There are also other things, such as there is a point at the very bottom of the foot called kidney 1. So if you pretended you didn't have toes and you divided your foot into thirds, it's the point between the bottom 2/3 and the upper 1/3. It's about the size of a nickel. And if you kind of scrunch your toes, you could see it. There's like an indentation, so to speak, in the skin. And just moving your foot around a golf ball or something along those lines, something to stimulate that point. What that has a tendency to do is bring the energy from the top of the head, where it's too much, to the bottom, which balances life out. And then finally, there is an herb called hops. It's often used with other substances such as passion flower or valerian root. Those three in particular will be fantastic. And it's very soothing. It's very calming. A person has a tendency to fall asleep relatively quickly after that. And you don't get that hangover-ish type of feeling that you do with some medications. So those things will be a huge help, and that balances life out, and it balances the yin and yang out. And finally, there's nothing better than finding a teacher that matters, somebody that you can connect with, somebody that has a tendency to say the things that you need to hear in a way that you need to hear it. There could be 20 people saying the same thing, and that one person over there, that's the one you connect with. Follow them. You don't have to do everything they say, of course, and you may not agree with everything, but they have a tendency to speak your language. They're walking down the same road that you are. They just may be, a mile ahead of it. Thank you again for listening. You have been listening to Dr. Orman's podcast, and I'll see you all next week.